right, Zell, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Well, I am currently regional director of operation here at Noodles Company. But prior, I started off as general manager at Noodles Company, and then I became a multi-unit general manager for Noodles Company, then moved into the area manager role for a couple of years, and then in 2021 got promoted to regional director of operations.
That is awesome. And it's cool. Like, I mean, you've been there for so long, so you've obviously seen like the evolution of the business because they've gone from like strength to strength over the last like, I mean, 7 years. I don't say it's all because of you, Zell, but I mean, in the sense of like over the, but like over the last, I mean, it's like there's so many locations now. So like, tell me, I guess, in your role then, like, especially now because it's like growing so quickly, and we're also in this sort of post-COVID era. Like, what do you think are like for you your three biggest like challenges or roadblocks?
I mean, I think biggest challenges for me in my current role, I will be honest with you, I don't have many challenges in my current role.
Lucky.
Go ahead.
I said lucky.
Yes, I love what I do. I always say when you find what you do well, do it, and it's not a challenge. I mean, I really love what I do. I really love the people that I work with. I really love how we operate. If anything, I think as far as the industry, the challenge for me is how do we get guests back in our dining room to have that old school pre-COVID feel?
Yeah.
But that's really the only challenge that I feel at the moment is an issue with the restaurant industry.
So that's really interesting. And I say it's interesting because I've done this, like, and I ask that question of everybody all the time, and everyone always goes like staffing number one, and then they always say like quality staffing number two. So it's like usually it's like one form of the same answer, and it's interesting that that's not where you went, and you actually went for like just getting guests into the restaurants. And so, tell me a bit more about that, like you like about like sort of like the behaviors or the sort of patterns that you've seen in sort of your customer base over the last, like, say, 2.5 years since we've come out of COVID?
Yeah, because, in one, staffing is, in my opinion, not a challenge, right? Because it's always going to be there. So it's how do we evolve? How do we make sure that our teams understand that we're an organization that they want to be in? That's something that's always going to be. We're going to be dealing with that in the restaurant industry until the end of time. For me, when you look at guests and the habits that has changed, especially post-COVID, right? We're looking at guests who were used to dining in, every other night, eating with their family and their kids, to now, third party is exploding. Now people are ordering online. So it's how do we get those guests back into the restaurant and enjoy being around other people and enjoy that experience that we're ready to provide them.
That's interesting. I mean, it's interesting you meant like online, because I hear that a lot about online curbside, and like how do businesses almost like redesign the sort of restaurant operation to match consumers where they are. Are there like technologies within that sort of space that are exciting you?
Yes, I think especially here at Noodles, we've become more analytical, right? So we're able to capture online what we would be capturing in a restaurant, as in what does that guest want? Who is that guest? What type of experience are they looking for? And we try to target that. So whenever they are ordering online, we can still try to give them the experience that they would get inside the restaurant. We still try to give them that uncommon goodness that they would get inside the restaurant through online ordering, but by being data driven, right? By understanding their habits, understanding what their needs are, understanding what they want, understanding what they're looking for and the value they're looking for out of our organization.
And you mentioned a great phrase there, uncommon goodness, which I love. Is that a phrase that you use regularly, or is that like how you guys as an operation, like every day it's uncommon goodness? Like, tell me about that. I just love that phrase.
Yeah, that's just how we try to operate, right? That's our philosophy, right? Uncommonly good guest service, uncommonly good people, uncommonly good food. And so we try to operate with that philosophy that whenever guests walk into our restaurants, they are going to get uncommonly good people. A lot's going on in the world, right? So we're trying to do our best to ensure that when people walk through our doors, they feel welcomed, they feel loved, they feel respected, they feel like we're trying to make their day a little bit better before they walked in when they leave.
That's awesome. And I guess like part of that is the guest experience. The majority of that guest experience stems from the staff that you already have. Like, I guess since post COVID, and one of the trends that I've certainly heard from a lot of people is, remember I mentioned earlier, was like people talking about staffing and they talk about quality staffing. Now the conversation is definitely around retention of staff that you have. And I'm curious, like, because it sounds like you guys are really leaning into like, how do we like showcase our uncommon goodness, our amazing guest experience? A lot of that stems from having really good staff in the restaurant in and of itself. So tell me, like, are you guys doing anything specific for like retention of like say good staff, like, or have things changed in terms of like the trends that you're seeing in terms of retention? Or
So I would say, as far as retention, we have a pretty good culture at Noodles and
yeah,
Company. And what we try to do every single day is live our culture in our restaurants. We try to ensure that our teams are listened to. If you followed any of our I&D efforts, we're doing a lot to ensure that our team members feel like they work for an organization that helps them be themselves every single day, that they work
yeah.
for a place that respects them and loves them and actually listen to them. And so I think if there's one thing that Noodles does very well as far as employee retention, we have an incredible culture like no other.
That's awesome. And you know what's interesting? And I hear when I think about culture, all of this is always phrases that come into like describing culture, like culture eats process for breakfast, or like, it's hard. A good culture is hard to describe, but you know when you see it.
Yes.
Like, are there things within sort of Noodles and Co.'s culture that you think make it stand out or be different than other sort of, I suppose, competitive businesses?
I mean, I don't know if there's something that makes us stand out more than everyone else. I think we have a culture driven by accountability. I think we have a culture driven by love and respect. And honestly, I think a lot of companies say it, but a lot of companies don't live it. And we
Yeah.
live it every single day. We ensure that the voices of our teams are with every conversation we have and every decision that we make. And I feel that that is one of the reasons why our team members love us so much.
That's awesome. And, it's interesting because, like, for me, as you scale a business like yours, like, you guys have so many locations now, like, scaling culture is just such a difficult challenge for so many restaurant businesses. I mean, there's certainly been a post COVID boom in terms of like restaurant franchise groups basically scaling their operations massively, like
Yep.
so many locations. And it's you can scale a good process because you've designed a process. I mean, you think back at the Founder movie and they talk about the McDonald's process of moving people around the kitchen and just like how they've designed it. And you can replicate that, but replicating culture is something that is like so much more difficult to do, because new people and it's just so massive so quickly. And so
Because
it's great
people
to
feel
hear.
that, right? People
Yeah,
feel that, right? Team members feel if they're just a number or
yeah,
if they're a person. They can feel if the culture is organic, if it's unique, if it's real. They can feel if you truly care about them as a person, right? When we talk about ask someone how they're doing and then stop and listen for the answer, team members can feel if those things are genuine. And I think the way you replicate that is when you're in restaurants every single day and you ask someone, how are you today? And you don't
yeah.
walk away, you actually stop and listen and wait for the answer, they know it's real.
Yeah, totally. And I guess like you're a prime example of that as well, because you've had multiple sort of promotions within the organization as well. So it's like being seen as well, like your honesty and effort being rewarded, and they're actually actively offering opportunities. What do you think kind of besides obviously your hard work and gregarious personality, what do you what do you think like were the things that got you so promoted so quickly? Like were there things in place, structures in place to help you do that, or was it just like force of nature that kind of got to you to where you were?
No, there was definitely, structure in place to help me get to where I am,
Yeah.
right? I remember when I was a general manager, I had a couple of mentors in this organization that saw me, right, and said, hey, if you want to become more in this company, we will help you. And every step of the way, I've had people, hold my hand and guide me, people who've been through the journey, people who've been where I am today that actually took time to develop me and pay back what someone gave them in our company.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so great to hear that. And I don't hear that from every person I interview on this. Some groups are very, very good at like being very like people first, and the proof's in the pudding in terms of like the people that I'm speaking to, like if some people say that they have or some people say they haven't. So it's great to hear that like Noodles is giving you that opportunity. I guess like in terms of growth, because you're like a regional director now, so you're responsible for how many restaurants fall under your remit?
57.
Like 57. Look, I mean, the numbers are mind-boggling. The
Yes.
numbers are crazy, and so it's interesting because I'm trying to wrap my head around this, which is the fact that you're responsible for 57. And going back to that first question about roadblock, when I was surprised that like staffing wasn't a question for you, that like I wasn't like the number one thing that came out of mind. So I'm curious now your take on this question, which I'm going to ask is like, what is the job market like? Is like Colorado special, or like how do you look at sort of the job market for hourly talent?
The job market is difficult, right? Because there's more competitive pay. Companies are paying more. Inflation kind of damaged a few things there. That's a topic for another conversation. However, I think when it comes to who we are, what we stand for, what our core beliefs are, we don't have as many challenges as we used to, either getting talent or retaining
Yeah.
talent, because we truly live up to who we say we are.
So do you think that there's a employee brand that you guys have that people want to come work for you guys?
So when you say employee brand, break that down a little
So
bit more for
yeah,
me.
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example, and forgive me for using a large chain example, but say Chick-fil-A, for example, is like almost like famous for its like employee brand that like kids want to go work there, and they pay great benefits and whichever else, and they have it. So they almost have like a self-referential cycle of people referring people to work there. There's a demand for people to want to work there. And I'm curious your take on that. Like, do you think that say Noodles has that as well within like sort of your area, your sort of region, in the sense that like staffing is hard and getting good staff is harder again. But some companies like really have sort of like standout kind of employee brands where people want to work there versus like, like you think of like something like a Panera, for example. Like Panera does quite well with like a lot of teenagers because I guess they don't smell like a frying pan, you know what I mean? And it's like bread, and like I'm just curious, like you feel it sounds to me like you've engendered a type of employee brand there, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that our team members refer their friends and family
Yeah.
because they know that they're going to be working for a place that's going to develop them for the future, right?
Yeah.
Like we are all about developing our people, internal promotions, trying to create opportunities where we can. I mean, we have a great set of benefits. We have a great set of things where people would want to come to work for us. However, we have a culture of development, right?
Yeah.
We are intentional with our team members. So when someone raised their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in being more one day, we're intentional when creating that roadmap for them and showing them a way to create a better life for themselves.
That's awesome. It's actually so refreshing to hear that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like it sounds like you've really, really got it down. That's all the questions I have.